Has this ever happened to you? You're browsing the internet, trying to find a fun video to watch in the throes of your boredom, when you come across something so heinous and disturbing, it makes you want to scream and start peeling your skin off. If you answered no, then don't worry, I'm here to help. A few weeks ago, over a month ago, God fucking damn. 12 Zoomer years ago, I became privy to an internet spat that was happening between two YouTubers I'd never heard of before. The first was this guy, Cold Raven, and the other was named Gay Roommate. Now, I didn't understand at first why a frosty avian and a homosexual living partner were duking it out on the digital streets. That was until I learned how the punches got thrown. You see, Cold Raven made multiple videos commentating over content created by Gay Roommate, and yet, even though commentating over existing content falls under fair use, Roommate decided to copyright strike Raven's video. This was most prominently addressed in a tweet by Raven on August 12th, where he posted the segment of the video being claimed in the strike. While I can't play it here, out of fear I will be hung upside down and castrated, I have watched it, and as a credible anime avatar on the internet, I can tell you the copyright claim is a steamy pile of horseshit. And yet, Roommate has still gone on to defend the copyright claim, stating that their videos were being used without fair use, even though it's incredibly obvious to anyone with cursory knowledge of how copyright works that Raven did nothing wrong. Then again, Roommate posted the classic "guy makes his bike fall, what him do" meme on their community tab, which means they're right. So I suppose there's no leg for Raven to stand on, unless the court system gets involved, but that sounds like a funny shenanigan for a later date. Because you see, this copyright slap fight is merely the setup for the wonderful adventure we'll be going on today. The reason why Raven was commentating over Roommate's videos is because of what their videos entailed, and it all has to do with these putrid little wonderful bundles of joy, fluffy ponies. If fear, disgust, or any number of morbid adjacent feelings haven't pierced your soul hearing those two words put together, then as the great Tom Wamsgams once said,
"Buckle up, fucklehead."
Fluffy ponies are colorful little miscreants with a sordid history online. They started out innocent enough on the only safe space left for straight men on the internet, 4chan's pony board. Well, okay, they really began on the comics and cartoons board before Rule 15 got enacted and Moot made a cool kids club for horsefuckers, but let this be a lesson in knowledge. I could misinform you as much as I want because I sound like I have authority and you'd believe me. Anyway, they began as nothing more than poofy-looking caricatures of the main six from My Little Pony, The Only Good One. The alleged first fluffy pony image was this picture of Best Book Horse. Nothing but a nice, cute image of Equestria's cutest unicorn librarian. This phenomenon of fluffy ponies later spawned other offshoots, including one named Flufflepuff, best known for the music video Pink Fluffy Unicorns Dancing on Rainbows. Ah, to be young again and have that play on a loop so much you want to put thumbtacks in your ears. But remember, this is the internet, and because it's the internet, everything needs to be ruined. Following the creation of the pony board in 2012, fluffy ponies began to take on a different shape. While there were still many people drawing wholesome renditions of fluffy ponies, both reimagined versions of the main six and original characters, a darker shape was starting to form as well, because the fan base surrounding fluffy ponies was growing in some unexpected ways. For one, different commonalities were starting to form among the art and stories being shared. You see, these little guys are fucking retarded. This relatable trait came with the less relatable trait of breeding faster than rabbits. Other common ideas surrounding the species included their love of hugs, or huggies, and their almost religious desire to eat spaghetti for every meal. They are also highly accident-prone and are liable to die from so much as walking into a wall too fast. This resulted in a plethora of stories where fluffy ponies would die in a variety of stupid ways. One common approach would be them drowning just by sticking their head into a puddle of water. Others saw their owners accidentally or even intentionally killing them for being bad fluffies. But one part of the fandom wound up standing the test of time. While again, this doesn't represent every creative endeavor involving them at the time, it is the one these bundles of joylessness are best known for: fluffy pony abuse. See, what I neglected to mention when talking about the spat between Cold Raven and Gay Roommate was that Roommate's content is exclusively voiceovers of fluffy pony comics, many of which are dramatized readings of fluffy pony abuse stories. As the name would suggest, many of these comics feature humans hurting fluffies in some fashion or another. For example, Roommate's most popular video features a fluffy calling a human a, quote, "dumb human," before getting flicked in the eye for being a little asshole. Well, these kinds are called smarties. There's a lot of distinctions we'll get into later, but for now just know he's too stupid to realize the world doesn't bend to his whims. Of course, little asshole is the leader of a pack of 6 fluffies. So what does the dumb human do? Plant all 6 of them into a pile of shit before drowning them when they ask for Wawa. Roommate's second most popular video features a Fluffy on one side of a scale, while her litter of 4 foals are on the other side. Both plates are balanced above 2 pots of boiling water. The mother tries getting to her babies by flailing her legs toward them, which causes her to piss and shit herself, and also causes her and the babies to topple into the vats of boiling water below, where they all die. Side note, none of the images I've just shown were directly sourced from Roommate's videos, so they don't hit me with a false copyright strike. Now, look, I'm not here to judge Gay Roommate for how they make a living. The economy is currently a massive hemorrhoic turd sitting in a filthy latrine, so if fictional pony torture comic dubs is how you're getting by, then whatever, more power to you. This isn't like that time I covered the Reptile channel a few years back, a YouTube channel where actual animals were being killed and fed for fetish content. This is fiction, and as disturbed as some of you may be that tens of thousands of people watch stuff like this on a daily basis, first off, I understand. But second off, trust me, I have seen the stomach of hell. This is just the mouth. However, Roommate and Raven's slap fight gave me an idea, and today I'm going to metaphorically rip your weggies off and give your brain biggest horties. In order to properly investigate the fluffy pony phenomenon, I will be seeking out comics and images that I myself can dub. Since Roommate is explicitly not a fan of people using their content without permission, I will instead craft my own, entirely for the purpose of education, in order to discover what makes fluffy ponies worth abusing and abusing copyright laws for. As for you, yes, you, I'm at your door. Sit back, relax, put away your snacks, grab a big old bowl for your future vomit, and let's begin our investigation into fluffy ponies. Now, the best way to start this great idea for a video is to simply Google fluffy pony and see what comes up in images. Here we can observe this rotund orange one attempting to eat a flower. Another can be seen here with her babies crawling around on her stomach. But don't worry, they'll be victims sooner than you think. And of course, it doesn't take too long to find our first fluffy getting tormented. Fluffy ponies sold by weight. Bargain, bargain, bargain. As you can mostly see, I'm a generous god after all, this fluffy is currently stuck in a bag of his own shit and piss.
Nice mister, please wet Fluffy out. Hoo hoo.
Ah yes, the hoo-hoo, the typical cry of a fluffy when they are being tormented. Another common theme I came across is baby fluffies getting tortured, with their mothers looking on helplessly as horrible things happen to them. One method involves rendering them immobile by cutting off their legs, as seen in this lovely little comic.
Please give back weggies. Babbas no can breathe. Fluffy want help Babbas. Please wingies. My Fluffy Babbas. Help Babbas.
Meanwhile, the fluffy babies are being suffocated in a glass bottle slowly filling with piss while asking for hugs. It appears that bodily fluids are another common theme among fluffy torment. And this image ended up being our gateway into the more gory images you've probably been expecting. In this therapy-inducing clusterfuck, a mother fluffy can be seen begging for the lives of her babies as a human kills them by tearing off their limbs one by one.
Hoo hoo hoo. Boys no give Babbas forever sweepies. Hoo hoo. Good Babbas need huggies and milkies and love. Hoo hoo.
The one currently getting its limbs removed as it literally shits itself in fear cries out to its mother, while another dying on the ground begins chirping. This appears to be a signature of baby fluffies before they're able to talk, or even while they're able to talk, like this blue one covered in blood and feces. Now, I'd like to remind you all that we haven't even used any of the fun keywords we'll be going through as our adventure continues. This is just the results you get from looking up fluffy pony, but it shows you that these torture comics are a very important part of the community. While some might use the term cute aggression to describe such things, I'd say this is more akin to morbid fascination or humanity's tendency to enjoy violence more than anything else. So far, nothing we've seen feels super fetishistic, which, if I'm being transparent, is kind of what I thought we'd end up seeing. Fun fact, did you know the term fetish doesn't just mean sexual gratification? It also means an inanimate object worshipped due to its magical powers, or because it's considered to be inhabited by a spirit. This has nothing to do with the video. I just thought that was interesting. Moving on, my next search was Fluffy Pony Comics, which I accidentally typed into the regular search bar instead of the images one. This ended up bringing me to a Reddit community, r/Fluffy Community. Sporting over 30,000 followers, it appears this community is dedicated to the torment of fictitious fat ponies. At least that's what it seemed like at first, but don't worry, we'll get there. The first comic I stumbled across featured a demanding bastard named Max.
Max one ski, one now.
Max has been burned to death by fallen tomato sauce, causing him to evacuate his bowels in the shape of a timbered Christmas tree. His owner decides to throw him in a garbage bag and just get a new one, potentially one with a little more tact. I wonder if there's some kind of complex reason within fluffy pony lore as to why humans see them as disposable to the point where even an accidental death is treated as no big deal? Nah, couldn't be. And even if there were, this is a YouTube video. What are you expecting? Full-baked information? Regardless, this subreddit seems like it could be a useful spot to learn more about fluffy pony torture. From that Max comic, it's clear seeing the ponies in pain is the real meat and potatoes of these things. It doesn't need to be humans inflicting the pain on purpose. In fact, it doesn't need to be humans at all. Sorting by top posts of all time and ignoring the moral fag wars, I stumbled across a comic by Throwaway Uppers. Some ferals actually favor poopy colors, as brighter ones give away their location to predators. Lots to unpack with the title, but it appears there are two types of fluffies in the world, those owned by humans and ferals, who are in the wild. Poopy colors are also mentioned as being favorable to the wild ones, indicating the brighter, more MLP-inspired colors are better in the eyes of the domesticated. As for this pink little guy in the wild, well,
Pink baby am too white. We'll make go forever sweepies. Mama, I'm so sorry, pink baby. Mommy, please.
Cut to beheaded Fluffy with an eye sticking out that honestly is not even that detailed and I could probably show it. But like I said, generous God and all that. Let's keep going. One comic by Neku-chan actually shows how poopy fluffies are usually treated, being killed because their coat isn't as pretty as the pastel colors of most other fluffies. And this behavior seems to apply to ferals as well, with our previous comic being an exception. Because it's multiple pages, I'm not reading the whole thing aloud. However, it begins with a mother feral fluffy berating her brown baby for being ugly.
Ugly poopy babies stole milkies with mama sweepers. Milky them for pretty babies, not ugly baby.
But before she can stomp him to death, her pretty babies are picked up by a woman who says it's so cute she could eat it up. The mother Fluffy, being retarded as previously established, begs for her child's life.
Baby, no nummy baby. Baby for huggies and love. Poopy baby and nummy baby.
The woman ends up leaving with our wrong-colored miscreant, much to the delight of the mother. But instead of killing him, the woman adopts him, naming him Rex and giving him a home to live in. The following panels show Rex getting milk, playing with a ball and blocks, and eating sketties. Meanwhile, the mother Fluffy is forced to eat garbage, resulting in her being unable to produce milk for her pretty babies. And as Rex is fixed, given a bed, and makes good poopies in a litter box, his mother is forced to watch as, one by one, her babies die. The first one she eats out of starvation, while the second one gets torn apart by crows. The last one dies from the cold, while the food situation becomes worse for her last child.
Sorry, baby. Mama, I'm having no milkies anymore. No no poopies.
Chirp. As the mother wanders with her last child, she ends up seeing Rex dancing in the house. And you know what? Just for you, I'm gonna voice what happens next.
Poopy baby? Poopy baby have houses and toys? No! Poopy baby only newfound for swimmers! No houses and toys and wild baggage baby! Mama tell you houses and give poopy babies weather stoppies! No! Baby! Mama sick baby! Always biggest hoodies!
Chirp.
We wonder, we don't mama, no nummies! Meaning mama, give poopy baby no mama! Business baby hate mama. Business baby nummy poopies. Better poopy baby nummy skitties. Business baby cold, but poopy baby have houses and toys. Mama give night new mama to poopy baby and no business baby. Eek. Business baby give solid poopy to wisdom mama. No, mama. No. What's this hot hoodies? Baby no need mama. Business baby for no mama and housey and toysy and skitties and wool. Stupid mama. No, business baby.
So it got hit by a car. Bestest baby's intestines are now sticking out of his mouth, and the comic ends a few days later, with Rex wandering outside the house only to find his old mother dead, still stuck inside the bush. His new mother reassures him that he won't end up like them, and so the comic comes to a close. I feel like we've learned a lot about fluffy ponies from this particular one. Not only do we know humans torturing fluffies isn't the only form of gore they go through, but some of these tales also have genuine lessons in them. Very meek shall inherit the earth, if I do say so myself. Of course, that doesn't mean all of them aren't gory, like this one of 4 fluffy babies getting roasted on a stick while its legless mother helplessly watches, or this comic of Los Fluffys Hermanos, which prepares fluffies into food. The example given involves this blue one, who is currently pregnant with a litter of 6. Her lower half is shaved, her, quote, rear holes are sealed, and she's boiled alive as her stomach is pumped with sauce until it opens, and her unborn babies spill out while she's served alive in a vegetable soup.
One die. Please kill Fluffy. Bebes. Please kill Bebes. Please.
Those nightmares are never leaving my head. Now, we've seen our fair share of fluffies getting brutally murdered or accidentally killed or turned into food, but honestly, this is just scratching the surface of the number of horrible things that happen to these poor little guys. Like this one, who decided to try having sex with a power strip, or this one, where a baby pretends to be a kitty monster, scaring its mother, who crushes it to death. And this one, which I can't show you, of a fluffy mother having a 4-fold miscarriage by farting shit, blood, and dead baby onto the wall. But aside from the nightmare fuel, fluffy ponies are more than just a bunch of gore and bodily fluids. Okay, so they're primarily gore and bodily fluids, but scrolling through some of the top posts, it's clear there's a lot more going on than just blood and guts. One post shows a cute fluffy biting into a lemon, and then it makes this face. Another parodies JFK in Clone High, looking for special huggies, which, look, it's sex, okay? Nothing bad ever happened to the Kennedys. And another offers a positive ending to a torture comic, where a fluffy being sold for live feeding is adopted and taken care of by his owner. Oh, and this card against humanity that basically describes a fluffy's day-to-day basis. It's clear from a lot of these comics that fluffy ponies aren't really as fetishistic as I privately believed when I first started my investigation. Instead, the more torturous elements are a part of a much larger community. The wiki even has a summary that explains the specific abuse section and what most people share and look at them for. The most popular part of fluffies is seeing them suffer. Their cute appearance, babbling baby talk, simple-mindedness, and endless capacity to love inspire unparalleled amounts of cute aggression. The fluffies believe the world is all love and huggies, and for a moderately jaded human being, seeing that naive innocence crushed can be an immensely satisfying experience. Abuse, at its purest, is plain sadism, indulging your evil side and relishing on the suffering of helpless creatures that have done nothing to deserve it. Essentially, they're edgelords creating stuff in the same vein as Happy Tree Friends. And I mean, come on, who doesn't like Happy Tree Friends? Fluffy abuse can mean intentional cruelty towards fluffies or just unfortunate events and situations happening to them. It can be as simple as a human kicking a fluffy, or as complex as a mother having to deal with a hopelessly crippled baby. Often, the emotional pain can be greater than physical, and fluffies suffering due to their own stupidity is one of the most universally loved forms of abuse. So, now that we have a better understanding of this subcategory of fluffy ponies, it's time to talk about the elephant in the room: morality. Now, I'd like to say something a little bit edgy, made even more so now that you know the extent of all the madness. A lot of the abuse art associated with fluffies, it's disgusting to me. There's really no way of sugarcoating that. I'm not a fan, and I don't want to see them get cooked alive. I actually find them quite cute, even if the incessant baby talk would make me want to just punt one of the little fuckers down a football field. Metaphorically. But everything being shown here is within the realm of drawings and stories. None of this is real, even if a lot of it is gross. And given the complexities of comics like the Poopy Baby story, a lot of this strikes me as made for shock and horror more than anything else. To me, it seems akin to the thrill you get from watching slasher movies, which evoke a whole range of emotions depending on how they make you feel. Or, for those who genuinely find catharsis in the art, more akin to those old mobile games like Kick the Buddy or Charlie the Steak. And those feelings of disgust that I feel, within the context of what I've read, are what I think are the emotions some of the creators were trying to invoke. Some of the stories obviously read like, we should kill these fuckers, fuck them, bing bang, fuck. But since I feel no animosity toward them, nor joy in their suffering, it evokes a sense of horror or disgust within me, which feels like an undercurrent some creators want readers and viewers to feel. Again, this is my opinion from my observations. I could be totally fucking wrong and looking at this from a very hopeful and naive lens, much like a fluffy would. I don't know. For all I know, this is just fetish shit with a complex coat of pastel paint. But to me, fluffy pony abuse feels more aligned with over-the-top slasher movie horror or those mobile games I mentioned previously than anything else. Kind of like Halloween or Terrifier, which, by the way, That last one is a great addition to your Spooktober movie binge. You can thank me later. No better is that detail than the fact these abuse stories are just one of 5 major categories within the fandom. The second of these is smarty abuse. An offshoot of regular fluffy murder, smarty abuse is special because it's often seen as justified. Much like America's continued stealth imperialism on foreign nations, smarty abuse is okay because they're the enemy. Essentially, smarty fluffies, or just smarties, are the opposite of a normal fluffy. While typical fluffies enjoy wub and huggies, smarties have what is described as suicidal overconfidence, making them mess with humans by antagonizing them despite having no real way of defending themselves. Yard invasions is described as a commonplace theme among their stories, where they lead a herd of ferals into someone's yard in hopes of taking over. Searching for yard invasions, one of the first comics to come up is Emma's Garden Invasion by Blue Bastard 99. A bunch of fluffies try to take a woman named Emma's garden away, with their smarty leader making dangerous threats.
Dummy monster, this is smarty herd win now. Dummy monster, we've smarty win now. Yay, smarty gonna get the biggest haze.
This rather rude request evokes the only response it can in a fluffy comic. Emma lets out her dog, Bruce, who bites off the smarty's hind leg before she and the dog kill the rest of the herd. While the smarty begs for his life at first, he decides to drag himself into Emma's shed and sit in a box, threatening to give her worstest hoodies. Of course, Emma responds by drilling his eye out, ending the comic as he shits himself. Minus the shitting, this one reminded me of the intro to a fluffy horror movie. Either way, this comic illustrates the smarty fluffy subgenre pretty well, showing a different side to fluffy suffering as it makes it of their own doing. But beyond torture and death, another popular subgroup is hugbox. This is essentially anything that doesn't align with tormenting the tiny equines and instead reveling in their cuteness, like the fat fuck who couldn't reach the flower at the start of our investigation, or this one of a foal who's barely the size of a human finger. Here's another of a babba who's balky, and this fluffy who drew the first time his owner took him home. Here's an image of Twilight Sparkle with a bow in her hair that I found while googling fluffy pony wholesome, and another of Spitfire looking embarrassed. Topical enough to be excuses for the eye bleach we need, because we still aren't done. Look at the timestamp of the video. Another genre in the fluffyverse is sadbox, comics and stories invoking fluffy suffering that aren't played for laughs, but instead meant to evoke feelings of sadness and pity toward them. This genre in particular even has a small subreddit of its own, filled with stories meant to be tear-jerking renditions of the plights fluffies go through. The most popular post features a fluffy mother about to be eaten by a dog, telling its babies to run. Another shows a fluffy owner putting a VR headset on his sick and dying buddy so he can see Princess Celestia before he dies. And since fluffies are too dumb to know what technology is, he thinks she's really there to take him to heaven. Yet another shows a fluffy mourning the loss of his special friend over her grave, while this other one, which I didn't find on the subreddit for clarity, shows a group of fluffies being taken to a shelter. While that last one isn't entirely sadbox, the fate of fluffies across so many different subgenres makes it difficult to really know what their future will hold. It should also be noted that not every sadbox comic I came across was just sadbox. For example, this comic, with some blood, but it's not much and I think I can show it, of a fluffy named Citrus who fell down the stairs playing with his ball. But there was a follow-up image showing Citrus was fine, he just lost a tooth. The last and what is seemingly the rarest form of fluffism is Weirdbox. This form was pretty hard to find examples of because I wasn't really sure what I should have been looking for. It's essentially fluffies being put into absurd situations and is seemingly one of the earliest versions of fluffy content. Googling it, I managed to find sparse examples, though examples nonetheless. The first is this fluffy named Carrot, who is pulling her babies out of the ground like carrots. Another one shows this little dude stuck in a trombone and becoming the instrument.
Bwop!
And one where a fluffy's weggies come back from vacation. I neglected to really talk about this because it didn't come up too much in my initial research, but a lot of fluffy torture comics have them getting their legs cut off and basically becoming rolling balls of fur to torment. This comic is a play on that trope, specifically fluffies being told their legs will grow back someday if they're good. In fact, Weirdbox seems to have its own trope of fluffies just sort of appearing in random places, like growing out of the ground or someplace just small enough for them to fit. It's an intriguing idea, and I'm kind of bummed out I didn't find more of it, because I actually find this play on them to be kinda endearing. So it's clear from all the nonsense I've been spewing that torture comics dubbed by people like Gay Roommate are really just one small part of the fluffy community. Hell, it's even only a majority, but not the entirety of what Roommate dubs. While my research indicates it's the most popular genre, by what seems like a pretty big margin, there is still quality art being produced for the 3 box subgenres. While none of this is really my thing, aside from Weirdbox, I could look at these goopers being goofy all day, It seems to have a rather tight-knit pull for a lot of people, likely drawn by the number of similar tropes that have been established for fluffies. The baby talk, the lack of intelligence, being prone to death, even small details, like them liking to play with balls and blocks, eating spaghetti, or there being a distinction between those owned by humans and ferals that are in the wild. Almost like they're real animals. It's almost as if there's a unifying thread tying all of these aspects of fluffies together, some kind of groundwork that makes it so all these images, comics, and stories could potentially coexist in the same world. Well, here's the thing. I've been lying to you this whole time, because my research didn't begin by Googling comics. It began with the Fluffy Pony page on TV Tropes, a page that details the lore, yes, the lore, behind the world of fluffy ponies. However, in order to streamline it, since a number of details are things we've already gone over, I'll be using the subreddit's Origin of Fluffy story to give you a taste of how they came to be and why they're depicted in the ways they are. In the year 20XX, a company called HasBio started developing the perfect pet, an intelligent, talking pet pony, genetically programmed for unconditional love and friendliness. Unfortunately, before the development was completed, PETA raided the facility and released the early prototypes into the wild. The unfinished fluffies still had their glitches, low intelligence, fragile bones, and a weak bowel control. Despite these limitations, their fast breeding rate managed to keep them alive, while their cuteness and personality made them popular as pets. So now we have our answers as to why fluffies are so abundant, both in the wild and in people's homes. It's all PETA's fault, just like real life. But HasBio is at fault too, because genetically engineering pets based on a show for little girls sounds like the start of a Five Nights at Freddy's adjacent horror movie rather than creating an invasive species. If anything, they got lucky. As for world building, it's a pretty creative excuse for the many things that happen in the Fluffyverse, made all the more clear by the next paragraphs. The wild fluffies kept breeding, which soon started to become a problem. Fluffies and their feces were everywhere, and when a major sewage pipe got clogged with fluffy carcasses, the local government decreed that any non-owned fluffies could be eradicated by any means necessary. Due to their artificial origins, the fluffies were classified as bio-toys rather than animals, denying them the protection of animal cruelty laws. This is how we got to where we are, fluffies being both popular pets and effective stress balls. Now, while this whole lore angle could be an elaborate excuse to justify drawing cute animals getting tortured and killed, the diversity of fluffy stories makes me less inclined to feel that way. In fact, removing it from the torment of cute ponies context, this lore is actually kind of cool. It's a world where there's this man-made invasive species that has some semblance of low-level human intelligence and that isn't innately evil, but still needs to be dealt with because of how fast it breeds. But at the same time, there are people who feel remorse for them and take them into their homes as pets. That's a really neat concept that feels ripe for all sorts of storytelling. I keep picturing in my head what it was like in the early days of fluffies getting loose and spreading around the world. Those initial moral questions of whether they should be killed, since they're the only other living creature that can communicate with humans. The legal trouble PETA would have undoubtedly gotten into, changing ecosystems worldwide through their shoddy plan of releasing untested experiments into the wild. HasBio's response, if they even turned a profit from all this since their ponies are now free. It makes me a little disappointed that torture and gore are all they're mostly ever really used for when there's so much potential here with the lore. But, while my hopes for fluffy stories making more direct use of the lore is rare, it's not impossible. Enter the Fall of Cleveland. In June of 2012, 3 members of the My Little Pony image site Derpy Boru, Lord Anubis, Giant Neckbeard, and Vanner began a collaborative writing project for a massive story set within the Fluffy Pony universe. The story's intention was to appeal to what I just mentioned, the idea that the Fluffy Pony universe has way more potential beyond just tormenting the poor little guys. The story follows an ensemble cast of humans and fluffies alike, all connected by Spaghetti Land, a new Fluffy Pony theme park in Cleveland, Ohio. The story takes place from just before its grand opening, right through its opening weekend, with the park intended to be a place for humans to take their fluffies on safe rides and to socialize. However, a combination of poor decision-making skills, the reactions of fluffies to the park, and a sinister conspiracy result in disaster. Said disaster being the Fall of Cleveland. Now, this story is quite long. It's 85 green text written chapters that follow a plethora of characters in a whole host of different scenarios. These range from people working on the park, to fluffy owners taking their pets, to the fluffies themselves, to ferals who also get caught up in the mix. It presents a wide range of various ideas from all 5 subgenres we've talked about, weaving them to create a cohesive narrative with a plot and character focus. Now, because I'm talking about the story, I want it to be fair and balanced regarding my judgment of the the efforts put in by the people who wrote it. So, I read it. The whole thing. And honestly, I really fucking liked it. The first thing that really stands out to me about The Fall of Cleveland isn't the story, but rather how accessible its chapters are. Almost every chapter begins with a basic summary of how its main character's story has progressed so far, making it easy for someone to skip around to different chapters if they wanted to. But reading it in full paints a much more accurate picture of what the trio of authors were trying to accomplish. Because, despite being derivative of cute animals getting tormented, there really isn't much of that in here. Now, of course, the story begins with a fluffy herd getting burnt to death, having nested inside a hazardous area of the park. But, as their leader dies, he also offers a warning to the human character who tried to save him. It sets the tone for the story as a realistic portrayal of death-prone fluffy ponies being part of the world, and something people simply need to live with. I think the moment it clicked for me how this would be is when the human narrator in Chapter 1 mentions they can't have any wires hanging outside the electrical box due to fluffies mistaking them for, quote, wall spaghetti. It has just the right level of detail and humor to clarify that this isn't here for torturous pleasure. This story is using the idea of has-bio, fluffy pets, and ferals to craft an all-encompassing tale meant to entertain as a story. The tales are all presented in a chronological timeline, switching from the perspectives of both minor characters and their interactions with Spaghettiland, alongside more relevant parties with key ties to how Cleveland falls. Because it's not really a spoiler to say that the title is, in fact, what happens. The coolest part of the story is how it really embodies the different types of fluffy content out there, although it definitely tones down on the abuse. For one, the only major instance of abuse that happens is brief and psychological, with the park offering what's essentially a VR game to scare misbehaving fluffies into acting good. There are, of course, instances of blood and guts, although these aren't there for the pleasure of the reader. In fact, a lot of it is pretty disturbing or shocking, like learning there's a whole colony of fluffies living in the sewers under Cleveland who feed on the, quote, belly sketties of their deceased friends. It is very much presented as disgusting, with the human character who finds out nearly vomiting as he watches the fluffies munch on the bodies. But for the most part, the story's multiple perspectives offer a really engaging narrative about a city falling apart due to an invasive species and man's hubris. And no, I'm not making that up. Those are the central themes that connect all the characters in these stories. Speaking of, there are a lot of memorable faces throughout the story, all of whom bring something new to the table. There's the park mechanic, Dwayne, who ends up befriending a sewer fluffy named Drain, learning about ferals through their interactions, which subtly sets the stage for later events that unfold. And yes, that's also where the casual cannibalism shows up. There's the fluffy Frank, a perverted freak of nature who enfs his couch while watching Uni the Unicorn. She's an actor in a fluffy outfit on a TV show of the same name, who Frank wants to give special hugs to by meeting her at Spaghettiland. There's also Mercury, a feral who sees ads for Spaghettiland through people's windows and decides to band together a whole host of other wild fluffies for a mass exodus there. An exodus is the right word, since he believes it to be not a theme park, but a borderline religious location. Of course, because they're fluffies, this gets out of hand almost immediately, and becomes a pretty major staple of all the events that transpire later on. And there's a whole host of other characters as well, some of who appear multiple times, and others who are just one-offs. These include people working at the park, fluffy owners, and even a few researchers at Has-Bio, because it's revealed pretty early on that the company is creating what they've dubbed Fuzzies, or Fluffy Ponies 2.0. These little guys are much more well-programmed and well-behaved versions of fluffies, perfected to listen to human instruction and not breed faster than rabbits, among other qualities. Their role in the story is pretty obvious right away. They're meant to replace fluffies, with Spaghettiland being an important part of the plan. I won't give too much away, partially because if this sounds interesting to you, you should read it, but also because we're almost 6,500 words into this script when I meant to keep it below 5. Oops. Now, despite all these different characters and storylines being interesting, the biggest draw for me was just how much I grew to care about some of these little guys. I liked how Mercury not only set off a chain of events that leads to a huge number of ferals learning about Spaghettiland, but also that he maintained an endearing nature throughout the story. I also really liked Archer, a smarty from California with his own storyline as he tries to get his herd all the way across the country. But I think my favorite storyline was probably this very short one involving the fluffy Marigold. Her and her owner are present at Spaghettiland throughout its opening weekend, offering a normal person perspective on the chaos that ensues. The thing I liked the most was the characterization of the owner, who's thrilled not only that his fluffy managed to be good for 3 months in order to go to the park, but also that he has an unlimited food pass. He's just a normal guy with a normal Fluffy, and the majority of the story is wholesome before everything falls apart. I won't spoil what happens to these two, but the story definitely threw my expectations for a loop at one point because of how conditioned I became into thinking something involving guts and torture was going to happen. Definitely not a key part of the story by any stretch, but the characterization of the owner, Marigold, and their regular Fluffy and owner perspective really made it stand out to me. It is, of course, not for everyone. As I mentioned earlier, the story doesn't shy away from fluffy blood and gore, especially once shit hits the fan at Spaghetti Land. But it's not torturous, and instead showcases a very realistic look at what would happen if a bunch of pets less durable than a wine glass arrived en masse to a spaghetti-filled theme park with a shitload of roller coasters and other dangerous rides. Well, dangerous for fluffies anyway. And that realism does involve fluffies dying in stupid ways, much like the herd at the start who decided a sparking electrical box was the perfect place to raise their kids, or the vignette of a pregnant fluffy who snuck onto a roller coaster, which didn't end well for her or her kids. And things only get crazier with the arrival of Mercury's herd and the Fuzzies, but I won't go too in depth. Honestly, I was getting a lot of Rise of the Planet of the Apes vibes during the last quarter or so of this thing, making me want to see a lot more projects like it set in the Fluffy universe. So The Fall of Cleveland gets 2 thumbs up from me. Definitely not for everyone, but it puts a unique twist on Fluffy stories to actually turn what amounts to excuses for torture into a genuine exercise in world building. Very well done. Now, while I could make a huge spoiler-filled ramble about what I liked about The Fall of Cleveland and why it's so different from typical Fluffy stories, something I'm liable to do in the future, given just how long it took to read. I mean, Jesus Christ, 85 chapters. I don't want to lose track of the big picture here, which is that yes, most Fluffy Pony stories are ripe with abuse because people like to see these little guys in pain. And yes, there is a complex lore backstory that justifies not only the abuse stories existing, but also the more wholesome, sad, or strange renditions of their world as well. But that lore also clearly has a ton of potential to go beyond just an excuse for torment. And after reading through The Fall of Cleveland, it makes me feel torn about my opinion on Fluffy Ponies. Especially when I went into it basically thinking I was gonna hate them the whole time. Gay Roommates videos were just the origin point of my investigation. But their videos also don't just focus on fluffy abuse. In fact, if you remember that comic about the poopy baby Rex, who got rescued from his abusive mother, that is one of the comics they dub over. The same goes for another one by the same author, Neku-chan, about an alicorn foal whose mother dies. Side note, I am sourcing these images from Not Roommates videos again, because despite what I'm about to highlight here, their false copyright claim against Cold Raven is still retarded because he did nothing wrong. Anyway, back to the Fluffies. In the comic, an alicorn Fluffy's mother ends up getting eaten by dogs, causing the alicorn to run away. While it eventually finds what could be a new mother, she ends up thinking she's a, quote, monster baby because she has both a horn and wings. This is because, in Fluffy Pony lore, they aren't able to compute the idea of an alicorn, causing most mothers to run away from, abuse, or even kill their alicorn babies because they were, in their eyes, born wrong. Anyway, the Fluffy mother runs away really fast, and because Fluffies have the IQ of a piece of lint and a Frito crumb, she runs so fast her babies fall off her back and die. This causes her special friend, who is a Smarty, to chase after the alicorn baby, hitting it so hard its eye hangs from its head. It looks like everything is over for our innocent foal, until a human arrives. She chases the Smarty away, before it can give her sawi poopies, and saves the foal. And who shows up but Rex, the poopy baby from Neku-chan's previous comic, begging for the foal's life to be saved. The woman capitulates, saving her life and naming her Dolly.
But baby, I'm monster baby,
Dolly says.
Monster baby only get forever sweepies.
But Rex cuts in.
No, baby, I'm Dolly. Dolly no monster. Dolly for huggies and love.
And while I wasn't able to find the images outside Roommate's video, there are apparently drawings by Neku-chan showing Rex and Dolly growing up, the latter sporting a heart-shaped eye patch as they eventually grow old together. And you know what? As much as I wanted to go in here tormenting my audience, and myself, by highlighting the sickness and depravity of Fluffy Pony content, I can't bring myself to fully hate everything about it. Now, don't get me wrong, the abuse stuff still disgusts me, even if I do personally view it from a horror movie adjacent lens. But when we have stories like Dolly's or Rex's that have these outcast characters triumphing despite the pain they go through, when we have stuff like The Fall of Cleveland, which shows just how much can be done with the lore in complex ways, and when we have Weirdbox, which people need to make more of specifically for me, it makes me feel torn about Fluffies as a whole. I fucking do not like any of the dog shit involved with cooking and eating them. I revile the comics where they're getting their legs pulled off. Yet, at the same time, I see an underutilized potential in the world building that makes it hard for me to fully hate the entire concept of fluffy ponies. And look, maybe I'm going out on a limb here, but that just makes fluffy ponies feel like an extreme version of online fandoms in general, just taking something and corrupting it into its most grimdark form. Because remember, all of this is an offshoot of My Little Pony, which has plenty of its own gory and depressing interpretations without adding fluffy coats and baby talk to its characters. The fluffy pony stuff almost feels like a nexus for that, but with the added bonus of more wholesome offshoots and lore that fits within reality. I doubt I'm going to be reading any more fluffy pony comics or stories anytime soon. Lots of it centers around their abuse, and while some of it is presented in horror-esque formats that can be engaging, a lot of it feels too tasteless for my liking. Yet I also can't fully denounce fluffies as the worst thing ever when I know there's plenty of stories people are telling that aren't as horrific and hopeless, and when the world building checks almost every box for me in terms of harsh realism meets fantastical elements. But despite my doubts about reading more stories, I would love to see ones created like The Fall of Cleveland, like Neko-chan's comics, that embrace the lore in interesting ways, preferably something apocalyptic, where man's hubris involving Fluffy's creation leads to the end of humanity. If they were able to destroy Cleveland on accident, God knows what would happen if they bred near a military base. So yeah, whatever. Call me a fluffy pony sympathizer all you want. While abuse is a no-go, sparks of the edgy teenager in me still want to see the kind of dark and twisted, yet thematically resonant stories that could still be made. Shit, I didn't even get to talk about Jellenheimers. What I'm really waiting for is some kind of Planet of the Fluffies, where, thousands of years after humans have become a distant memory, a group of astronauts crash land on what they think is an alien planet. Like, how has that not been made yet? Do you see what I mean about there being so much potential for genuine stories here? Well, regardless, I think I'm going to go watch my favorite episodes of MLP to unwind from all the grisly gore shit my eyes have been subjected to over the last however many minutes in we are. Because thankfully, abusers won't go to Equestria when they die, meaning they'll be stuck in fluffy baby talk hell for all eternity.